Okay, well, welcome everyone to our B2B workshop, business to business workshop. My name is Damaris. I'm the administrative and marketing coordinator here at the Greater Keene and Peterborough Chamber. And today we have some SBA updates. Feel free to put any questions in the chat, and then I'm sure you guys will be answering that towards the end. So I'll turn it over to you, Rachel.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Damaris and Nancy, for having us today. We really appreciate the opportunity. My name is Rachel Roderick. I am the Deputy District Director for the SBA in New Hampshire, and I'm joined by Warren Haggerty, who's our Economic Development Specialist that covers the county over there. So we're going to give you a quick update on the disaster assistance that is available now for small businesses, go through some of the programs that we have ongoing, some things that are coming, and then hopefully answer any questions that you may have. So Warren is controlling the slides. We can probably skip to the next one, Warren, if you don't mind. Great. And since we are such a small group, just feel free to stop us as we go through the slides if you have any specific questions or want to clarify anything that we're talking about at the moment. We'll make it as interactive and helpful to you as possible. So this first slide here gives you a snapshot of the different programs that SBA has available currently. We do have the Paycheck Protection Program that reopened again. We had it in 2020, reopened again in January of 2021. And it's pretty similar to the first program. It expanded some eligibility. It also offered a second draw option for those that took advantage of the first draw in 2020. And it really focused on the hardest hit businesses and kind of the smaller of small businesses with a couple of the initiatives that SBA had. And we'll talk about that as we go on. We are continuing to offer debt relief to our existing borrowers. So for anyone that has a SBA loan through any of our outlets, which is mostly through our participating lenders, but also if you have a 504 loan through our community development organizations, or even a micro loan through that intermediary, all of those borrowers are receiving a number of payments that SBA is making on your behalf. And those are forgivable payments. So those aren't payments that are just being kicked down the road. Those are ones that SBA is paying that do not have to be paid back as part of the assistance for debt relief. We are also offering anyone that's applying for new loans. So if anyone is, believe it or not, people are starting businesses still, even in this environment. So we have people that are starting new businesses that need loans, or anyone that's looking to finance anything new. That would be done through our regular loan programs. And those individuals are also receiving 3 months of principal and interest payments that SBA is making on their behalf to our lenders. We are also offering no guarantee fees on our existing loans as well. So both of those incentives are really good to spur up our lenders and businesses that are in need of that new capital. Back on the disaster side, we have our direct economic injury disaster loan program, which we'll get into the specifics on that and how you can apply for that. If you haven't, that's been extended now through the end of December. So December 31st of 2021. There is some advance grant money in that program, very targeted at this point, which we'll touch on. And then we also have 2 other grants that are going to be opening very soon. One is for our shuttered venue operators. So these are live performing centers, that type of business. And also something coming out for restaurants that will be specific grant money that does not have to be paid back. Oh, did we miss one of the slides? Okay, maybe not. That one seems misplaced, but go ahead, sorry. So just in line with our trying to get to the very small businesses, the SBA also recently announced that we are looking at how we calculate the Paycheck Protection Program loans for sole proprietors a lot different now. So it's focused on, it can be focused on the gross income versus the net income. So this allows much larger increased loan amounts to self-employed individuals, independent contractors, and sole proprietors when they're calculating the loan that they're eligible for. It also allows for people that may have had a loss in 2019. Before this change, they would not have been eligible for this program. Going forward, they would be eligible. And this is basically changing the way that owner's compensation is calculated for those Schedule C filers. So pretty significant change for those individuals. And it allows them to get replacement of some of their lost self-employment income because of the pandemic. So this just goes into a little bit more of the calculation on how that is calculated. So basically, you would look at your Schedule C form and you would look for line 7, which is your income before all of your expenses. And that's how you would kind of calculate your owner's compensation for the year. And then you would come up with your average monthly number from that, and then times that by the 2.5 months that the PPP program allows. If you have employees, you go through that initial step to determine the owner's compensation, but then it also allows you to go back and put in any of your direct employee expenses and payroll expenses to come up with your whole picture of what your payroll costs would be. So that would be owner's compensation plus any direct payroll costs. And then that is the basis for how you determine your loan amount. So really the big change here is how the owner's compensation is calculated, which is just a much more favorable position when you can use the gross versus the net in those calculations. So when the program reopened in 2021, it allowed for either a first draw or a second draw. So the first draw is available to anyone who basically did not get a PPP loan in 2020. So it just reopened the program for those individuals. It still requires that you have been in business by the February 15th deadline. And it allows you to cover, it's mostly meant for payroll expenses. So payroll can be either owner's compensation or direct employee expenses. 60% of the loan must be used for that, but it also allows for other expenses to be used for that 40% additional of the loan. So you can use it for things like rent, utilities. They also expanded it to allow for PPE costs, supplier cost, any renovations or anything you had to do to your business to comply with any COVID regulations can also be part of that 40%. We recently did extend the program, so it's now open until May 31st of 2021 or until our appropriations exhaust. Currently across the country, we are at about 80% through the funding level at this point. So the agency has done 4.4 million applications just in 2021. We've gone through about $233 billion in funding, and that puts us at about 80% through the authorization that we have at this point. Just to make it a little more localized for the numbers in New Hampshire, we've done just over 14,000 loans we hit the $1 billion mark. So we're at like $1.1 billion in funding in New Hampshire for 2021. So our lenders are very actively, using this program and getting that help out to our small businesses, which is great. This slide just talks about more on the eligibility. So basically it opened it up to a lot more nonprofit organizations recently. So most 501c nonprofit organizations are eligible for this. It also expanded it to include some internet only publications that could apply. But the other list below is just the regular, all the organizations that are now eligible under all of these different, legislation that has passed. So really key that what we're focusing on are the sole proprietors, the independent contractors, and the self-employed individuals, because a lot of those individuals did not understand that if you didn't have employees, you were still eligible for the program. You can just calculate your loan based on your self-employment income that was lost. All business or entities obviously are eligible, whether you're a partnership, a corporation, or an LLC, and most nonprofit organizations at this point are eligible. So the program, when it did reopen in January, did allow for either the first draw or the second draw. So obviously, if you're going for the second draw, that means you already received a PPP loan, usually in 2020, and then you're eligible to apply for the second go around. Now with this extension of going out to May, it's possible that you could have received a first draw loan in January or when it reopened in 2021, and now also be eligible for a second draw. So that's something to look at if you did get a first draw loan early on in 2021. But basically this allows for any business that's eligible that also suffered a 25% reduction in gross revenues to be able to come back for a second draw loan to cover basically the same calculation. So it's going to give people that 2.5 months of their payroll or owner's compensation is how the loan is calculated. This one also allowed for an additional month if you are in the restaurant or accommodation sector. So if you are a restaurant or a motel or somebody in the NAICS code 72, when you come up with your monthly payroll expenses and owner's compensation, you can times that by 3.5 versus the 2.5 to come up with your maximum loan amount. So that was good news for them as well. You do have to have at least 8 weeks in between the time you got your first draw proceeds and your second draw proceeds. So that's why that extending it out to may allow for people that received the loan in 2021 to be able to get the second draw now. And you do have to certify that you have used all of your funds and your covered period is now over before you can get your second draw loan. So the access to this program, this is a delegated lender program. So what that means is that you have to apply for these through our participating lenders. So most people go to their own bank or credit union to access the program. If you don't have that existing relationship, we have a couple options for you. We have a program called Lender Match on our website, which you'll see the link there, sba.gov/lender match. You can put in your information and there's lenders that are part of that system that will get a referral and reach out to you. We also have an updated lender list on our website. So Warren, when he talks at the end, he'll give you our local website information. You can find a list of our New Hampshire participating lenders on there. So you would access the program. Most of them have an online presence of how to apply for PPP right on their website, where you fill out the information that's required, upload the documentation. For the most people, what you're going to upload is some kind of ID that shows that you are who you say you are. So a photo ID, your payroll documentation. So that could either be, if you have no employees, it could be as simple as putting up your Schedule C of your tax return that shows your business income. If you do have that outside payroll information, you would want to provide documentation for your owner's compensation and your payroll so that they can calculate your loan amount. And then something that shows that you were in business by the February 15th deadline, whether it's a bank statement, a utilities statement, anything that shows that you had an operating business as of that date. Then the lender would submit the application to the SBA and get a loan number, which obligates the funds. And all of that needs to take place before that May 31st deadline at this point. So that's when we have authority to still issue loan approvals under this program. So these loans are designed to be forgivable loans. So for over 99% of people, these loans will be forgiven. So you would get your proceeds. The lender would have you do the DocuSign after you apply and it's approved. you would get the proceeds in your bank account that you designate, and then you would have to apply for forgiveness after your covered period ends. So after you go through and spend the funds on either your payroll or your owner's compensation, and at least 8 weeks goes by, you'd be able to apply for forgiveness through the lender. If for some reason either you don't have the eligible expenses to account for your loan amount, or you did not use the money as agreed, that would turn into a loan, which the agency has set up some terms that are pretty favorable. You would have a fixed interest rate of 1%. It would be payable over 5 years, have no collateral, no personal guarantees, and no penalties for prepayment. So it's very rare that it's going to turn into a loan, but if it does, there is a mechanism for repayment that's pretty favorable for people. So this just goes a little bit into some of the changes that were done that address forgiveness in particular. So when this program first rolled out in 2020, for people that took advantage of the economic injury disaster loan, there was a grant portion that tied into that, where people were given either $1,000 per employee, and that was kind of a grant that didn't have to be paid back. Before the Economic Aid Act passed, and we were talking about the legislation under the CARES Act, it was going to require that advance money be deducted from people's forgiveness. So that was corrected with the Economic Aid Act. So that was a really good change, both for borrowers that weren't expecting to pay that grant money back, that were going to indirectly have to pay it back if they got the PPP loan, and also for our lenders that they weren't going to be saddled with a bunch of really small loans, 10,000 and under, to have to, figure out repayment and all of that. So we were happy that change came about, that no longer affects forgiveness, and anyone that got their loan forgiven before the Economic Aid Act passed would be reimbursed that grant money back to them. So another good change was that the IRS relooked at their policy on requiring that any funds used for PPP would not be tax deductible, and they reversed that decision. So those now, anything that's used for the PPP funds can also be tax deductible for businesses. So those payroll expenses, the rent, the utilities, all of those that you use PPP funds are now regular, as they normally are, deductible business expenses for people. The agency also simplified the forgiveness application process for all loans under $150,000, which is about almost 90% of the loans that we're making under this program fall in that category. So that takes the burden away from the business having to supply a ton of documentation. It really simplifies the forgiveness process. And that was the intent of the program, that these loans be forgiven. So that was another great change. And then always was the case is that once your PPP loans are forgiven, that forgiveness amount is not federally taxable income. So I'll turn it over to Warren to go over some of the changes to our direct loan program through disaster.
Okay, thank you, Rachel.
Sure.
So as Rachel mentioned before, this is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, or the EIDL, as it's typically referred to as. It is for providing economic aid to businesses experiencing temporary loss of revenue during this period of COVID-19 that we're in. As Rachel did mention, the Economic Aid Act extended the deadline of the program to December 31st. You can only apply once for an EIDL loan. So if you have not applied for one, certainly consider doing so. It is a great source of some added income during this time. The funds can be used for working capital, normal operating expenses, continuation of your healthcare benefits, rent, utilities, and fixed debt payments. The only thing to be aware of is if you also get the PPP program, you can't use the PPP and the EIDL loan to pay the same type of bills at the same period or same time frame. So just you can't mix and match those together. As far as this is a loan, although it does carry a 3.75% for businesses and a 2.75 for nonprofits fixed interest rate, and it's based on a 30-year payment schedule with no prepayment penalties. Loans that are over 25,000 are secured with a UCC filing, and so it does cost $100 to make that filing, so that would be deducted from the loan proceeds. Eligible businesses and organizations would be really any qualified small business, cooperative, and agricultural enterprises with 500 or fewer employees, or they can be defined as small if they use the size standard through SBA, and that's sba.gov/size standards to check your requirements for that. And private nonprofits also qualify to apply for the EIDL loan. If you're interested in applying, and like I said, you have not already taken advantage of this program, it is an online application, and you would go to covid19relief.sba.gov, and the application is right there. It's a very abbreviated application, very simple to fill out, just some very general information about your business, and then SBA will come back and calculate how much you qualify for. And I do want to just check. Okay. So the other thing to be aware of, these are some changes to the program with the new legislation that's taken place. Loan limits are now up. Originally, it was calculated at 6 months, and the loan limit now takes into consideration it's using a 24-month calculation. And it used to be the maximum amount that you could qualify for was 150,000, and that has now been increased to 500,000 maximum. There is a mechanism now in place that SBA is sending out an email to individuals that have already received their EIDL loan, asking if they are interested, basically via an email, and giving you information in what the process is to go forward with that. So if that is if the individual is interested in increasing that, it is not a new loan, it is a modification to the existing loan that they would have in place. So they would have that option. And this slide kind of talks about that a little bit. Or you also, if you do not receive an email asking if you want the increase, you certainly can send an email out to COVID EIDL increase requests at sba.gov. And in the subject line, you need to put EIDL increase and then have your EIDL application number in the subject line. All SBA disaster loan payments are deferred now. Any loan that was made during 2020, the first payment will not be due for 24 months from the date of the note. And any loan that is made in 2021, the first payment won't be due until 18 months from the date of the note. So that's all been expanded. So no one will have to start paying back any sooner than that, any sooner than 2022 at the earliest.
Can I just interrupt with one little tidbit that I've been working with a couple people on that are applying for this. You just have to be really, it is a pretty basic application. When you go in there, just be very careful that you're picking the right information. There's like two pieces of vital information. One is your total sales. So you would get that off of, most people off your Schedule C or, you know, your business tax return. And then the other piece of information is your cost of goods sold. If you get those two numbers right, that will calculate your operating expenses, and that's what they're calculating the loan amount. So I've had a couple people that didn't put the right information in there or didn't understand what they were looking for. And if you don't get those right, they can't really determine your loan amount correctly, and it could result in them saying you don't have, you're not eligible or whatever, and it kind of puts it in a tailspin the wrong direction. So just wanted to share that.
Yeah, also the other thing, if I'm not mistaken, you need to really make sure, you need to make sure that your banking information is correct too when you're applying, because if that gets, for some reason, you don't put the correct information in, it's very hard to get that corrected. And again, like Rachel said, it would put your loan in possibly a tailspin and not be able to qualify. So you want to be very careful with that information as well. So Rachel mentioned as well earlier about debt relief for certain loans, all the 504, 7A and micro loans that are approved on or after February 1st of 2021 and through September 30th of this year, we'll have the first 3 months of principal and interest paid after loan is fully dispersed, and it is capped at $9,000 per loan per month. So that's quite a lot of funds that is available to go towards your existing loan that you may have just taken out. Borrowers do not need to apply for debt relief. The SBA provides it automatically. And there is a letter that would be sent out to the eligible borrowers on that to make them aware of that. And if anybody had questions or has questions on existing loans or these loans, they should contact the lender with any of their debt relief questions that they may have. Targeted idle advance. There's no action required on the part of the individual that has already received it. This is a new program in the Economic Aid Act. It's only for businesses and nonprofits that applied for the idle, and one, they qualify if they're in a low income community, have suffered greater than a 30% economic loss, and have 300 or fewer employees. There is a mapping system that's available to check to see if you are in a low income community. And that is really the initial primary requirement that you have to kind of get over that hurdle before the other two really come into play. If you meet the above requirements, the targeted advance will, per funding availability, will balance out the previous idle advance that you received and assumingly you received something less than 10,000, which was the max, and it will provide the difference between what you had already received and the 10,000. So you would get that additional funding as well. SBA is emailing those who may qualify with instructions how to determine eligibility and what documents that are required to be submitted. So part of that eligibility, like I said, would be to verify that you are in fact in a low income community. So a couple of new programs that are coming our way is a Shuttered Venue Operator Grant. Over $16 billion in total funds are available for this, with a maximum grant up to $10 million. Eligible entities are live venue operators or promoters, theatrical producers, live performing art organizations, theaters, relevant museums, zoos, and aquariums that meet certain requirements, very specific requirements, talent representatives. A maximum of 5 business entities related via affiliation is allowed, but no more than that. And basically what that means is you could have a parent firm that would also have up to 4 subsidiary organizations that are affiliated with them that also meet the eligibility requirements. Plus, you must have been in operation as of February 29th of 2020. Currently, the system is paused, and there's a reopening date will be announced in advance to allow everyone sufficient time to prepare for the information that they need to gather if they've not already done so. So we will be pushing that out, any information that we get, and I will talk about how that happens. But any changes or updates on any of the programs that we have discussed or will mention in the next couple slides, there's a way that you can get those updates very easily. So we'll talk about those in just a second. What to do to prepare for the shuttered venue. If they haven't, or you're not already, you need to register in the federal government systems for award management, or SAMS.gov. And you need to, you can review to make sure you're getting all the appropriate information gathered, because there's updates that are frequently available, FAQs. There's a preliminary checklist, eligibility requirements, and video tutorials. And all this information can be found on sba.gov/SVO grant. And really all the information you would need to participate in that program. Determining potential grant eligibility, it is no longer the lesser of 10 million, or if an operation on January 1 of 2019, 45% of the 2019 gross earned revenue. If began operation after January 1st of 2019, the average monthly gross revenue for each full month in operation during 2019, and then that's multiplied by 6. Some other new programs, because of the American Rescue Plan Act that was just recently signed, relief and assistance for the hardest hit industries and businesses. There's a supplemental targeted advance payment, and that information can be found at sba.gov/targeted advance. There has been $5 billion in funding put towards this program for additional $5,000 payments to those businesses that had received the EIDL loan and are the hardest hit of those. We also have the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. There is $28.6 billion eligible for this, and it is available for eligible entities in this hard hit industry. Maximum of $5 million per grant per location, or a total maximum of $10 million per business. And it's really for any restaurant, food truck, food vendor, any place that serves drinks, bars, saloons, any of those types of places would qualify, and they can go to, there will be information coming soon on all the exact requirements for that program as well. That'll be coming soon. Community Navigator Pilot Program. This is for organizations that are interested in help small businesses navigate through all these different programs that are in fact available. There's $100 million in grant money available for organizations that would be supporting the efforts of helping those individuals. $75 million to support outreach efforts, including the creation of a telephone hotline for information and referral services. And if any organization is interested in that, they can go to sba.gov/navigator to find out the requirements and look into if that would fit into what your organization does. So now we have some local resources that are available. These are resource partners of ours. They are available all the time, and they can provide one-on-one free confidential business counseling for a business or for an individual thinking about starting a business. They also have a wide variety of workshops that they're putting on that are available that can be found on our New Hampshire District Office website. They're all being done virtually during this time frame. The organizations that really do a fantastic job here in the state of New Hampshire. We have SCORE, which is made up of volunteer men and women who are current or past business owners. We have the Center for Women in Enterprise, which deals primarily with women. However, they do work with male-owned businesses as well. We have the Small Business Development Center, which has certified business counselors, and they are affiliated with the University of New Hampshire system. And then we also have the VBOC, or the Veterans Business Outreach Center. And they also work with not only veterans, but also their spouses as well. So all of these resources are available all the time to work with a business, but certainly during this period of time that we've been in over the last year or so, they've been a great asset to small businesses to help them navigate these programs. So some important links to be aware of, as we talked about. If you are interested in staying up to date on all the various changes and updates and new programs coming out, the best way to do that is sign up for our New Hampshire e-newsletter, and you can go to sba.gov/NH. Go to the very bottom of the screen on the right-hand side. We have a link that you can click on. Basically, plug in your email address and submit it, and you will be getting, usually it's about twice a week we send out a newsletter, generally at the beginning of the week, and then towards the end of the week we send out another one, because there's generally that many changes and updates and various information. We also publicize the various workshops that are being put on by our resource partners, and any other information that might be of importance to small businesses as well. If you're interested in following us on Twitter, you can go to @SBA_NH for our local Twitter account. Instagram, where we have a nationwide one, which is instagram.com/SBA.gov. If you're interested or have any questions or anything concerns, anything really that might come up that you need to ask a question about, probably the best way to reach someone is to send the question or whatever information you're looking for to our email. And that is New Hampshire, spelled out and all together as one word, _DO@SBA.gov. That account is monitored all the time, and someone will certainly get back to you as soon as possible with the answer that you're looking for, or the answer that you're trying to get answered, I should say. You can also call our office. It is 603-225-1400. If no one is available to answer, you certainly can leave a voicemail. And again, we will get back to you as soon as possible. Some important sites to be aware of. You can go to sba.gov/relief for all the economic aid options that are available for small businesses. Or if you're looking for some of the specific programs like PPP, it's sba.gov/PPP. Economic injury is sba.gov EIDL, or for the Shuttered venue program, it is sba.gov/SVO grant. And just some key takeaways to remember that Rachel went over. You have the Paycheck Protection Plan. We have debt relief for either existing loans or new loans that are being made. And then we also have the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. And then as far as grants or other programs like that, we have the EIDL Advance, the Supplemental Targeted Advance. We have the Shuttered Venue Operator Grant and the Restaurant Revitalization Fund that should be available soon. And with all that being said, if anyone has any questions at this time, we'd be happy to answer those.
Hi, I do have a question. It's Carol Slocum.
Okay.
So last year when everything started, I'm an independent contractor. Last year when everything started, I applied for the EIDL grant, never received anything. Then I did do the PPP first draw. I did receive the EIDL loan about last June. And am I eligible to apply for another PPP second draw?
Yes, as long as you have either spent the funds or a minimum of 18 weeks have passed.
Eight.
I'm sorry, 8 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not 18, 8 weeks. Sorry about that. Since you received the funding, basically the requirement is that you either have spent or will have spent the funds from the first draw prior to receiving the second PPP.
Okay,
So that is a true statement. Now, don't forget what Rachel said is the way you can calculate your funds. If you're a Schedule C filer, you would now use the line 7 instead of line 31 from your Schedule C to calculate those funds with. So that should increase the amount that you would qualify for quite substantially.
and so the lender that I used for the first draw is not accepting applications. I've checked with a few others and it says you have to have an account with them. Should I just go to your SBA looking for another match for somebody? It just seems, I don't know. It's like,
Yeah,
because it's like they don't want your application if you don't have a bank account with them.
Yeah,
Right.
who did you go, who was your lender the first time around, if you don't mind?
Service
again?
Credit Union,
And they are not accepting?
they are not accepting.
applications? Huh,
Nope.
okay.
Then I'm over in the Keene area, so then I checked out Mascoma and it said you have to have an account with them. And I haven't checked much further, but it looks like with that 80% gone, I better move on it.
Yeah, if you want to email our office, we can give you a couple other contacts in the Keene area to reach out to. A lot of the lenders are going to ask you to have an account with them in order to do the loan. There are some online options, but it's kind of hard to deal with the customer service on some of those things sometimes, but
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And okay,
yeah, but you can certainly try the lender match as well, and you may get some of those online lenders responding to that.
and those are ones that you would recommend or have.
They're ones that have agreements with the SBA, and there are
Okay.
challenges there. So you want to just be, the customer service we have found hasn't been terrific with some of those online lenders, frankly. But if it's a pretty straightforward loan, then it shouldn't be that much of an issue, especially if you want to keep your banking relationship with who you have instead of moving it to another lender.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think most of them, pretty much any of the, actual lenders are going to require you to, like Rachel said, to open an account at least with them, because that's how they're going to disperse their funds. But I don't necessarily know if that would mean they would require you to move all of your banking with them. I guess that
Right.
would be something you would need to discuss. But
Okay.
if you're interested in getting a list of some other lenders, possibly, if you want to send an email to our New Hampshire _DO@sba.gov mailbox, we certainly can send you possibly a couple recommendations, that might be able to help you.
Yeah, I think I already got that because I did that a couple weeks ago and
Okay.
yeah, there's quite a list. So I'll just
Email us again, because I'm going to dig through my email, but I helped somebody over in the Keene area and gave them a couple contacts that was not a long list. There was a list, a couple. So if you email us again, we'll share that list with you, and that might be more helpful.
And the New Hampshire _, what was that? That email?
DO. Yeah, it's DO like district office, and then @sba.gov.
Perfect.
The other thing too is to look in your email to see if you got an invite to the targeted EIDL advance, because it sounds like when you got your EIDL loan, you may have been at that point where they ran out of funding on the original advance, but you might be eligible for the targeted advance. And when we respond in your email, we can give you that tool to check your location to see if you might be eligible for that.
Wonderful.
You do have to have an invite from SBA, but it's just sometimes it goes in a weird folder. So if you want to just search your email to see if you have anything on that targeted advance, that's something you might definitely want to look at, because if you're in that eligible area and you can show at least that 30% reduction, you'd be eligible for the full $10,000 under that program.
And what email am I looking for? What would it have come from?
It should be coming from the disaster office. So if you like search your email for either disaster or EIDL, and see if you get something that pops up on that.
Yeah,
I
or
think
like
it's
SBA.gov even. It's going to have a, at SBA.gov kind of extension on it
Okay.
for sure.
Mhm.
So.
I'll do that. Great. Well, thank you very much. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much for all the great information. I continue to try to always tune into this type of thing because it's just really helpful and greatly appreciated.
Yeah, well, thank you for
Yeah.
joining us.
And if you don't have a relationship with one of our partners, I know Warren had touched on each of our partners. I would really highly recommend that. They're just great to help navigate some of these programs, but just as another resource to tap into, just for any other thing that comes up as a business owner. So
Great. Thank you.
thank you.
Welcome.
Have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much, Warren and Rachel, too. This is really excellent information. So we'll be posting this video on our YouTube channel, and we can send it out to whoever needs it. So thanks again for
Okay, terrific.
joining us.
And
Hope you have a good rest of
certainly,
your day.
and let us know if you do want us to participate in any of those coffee chats or whatever it was that you would call it.
Will do.
Okay.
Yes.
And we'll follow up with some information on that restaurant outreach that we're doing next week as soon as we have a flyer and some social media pieces. And if you can help us with that, that would be great. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we'd love to have that information. We have a very active